The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. Welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky.
We talked about in the first hour, we talked about the Bulls, and we talked about everything going on with them and Dwayne Wade's comments about how he doesn't want the fans to boo. And we also talked about the Cubs and the hot stove tracker in the MLB, talking about a lot of the moves that have gone down so far in the offseason. Now we're going to move on to the White Sox, as they probably had the best offseason. They definitely had the best winter meetings of all the teams, but it looks like they're going to turn out to have the best offseason for any team, as they finally decided to move in the rebuilding direction, as they traded Chris Sale to the White Sox, and they traded Adam Eaton to
the Red Sox.
The Red Sox, that is, and they traded Adam Eaton to the Washington Nationals.
Which we'll get into that Adam Eaton trade and why the Washington Nationals offseason has been a failure in a little bit.
Complete failure, yeah.
I think it's best to start with the Sale trade.
Yeah.
They got arguably the top prospect in the game,
Yohan Moncada.
They got Michael Kopech, who's thrown 105 miles an hour. Although 2 years ago he was suspended for PEDs, and last year he broke his throwing hand punching a teammate.
Yeah, that's not good.
And then they got a couple other good guys, which they got a great haul for Sale. And right now their prospect pool is kind of similar to what the Cubs had a couple of years ago when they had, so many top prospects and elite ones.
Right.
They don't necessarily have like a prospect like Chris Bryant that you could probably pencil in to hit 40-plus home runs a year.
Yeah, I would say.
There are no prospects like that.
Right.
There are very few, which is why I've said multiple times the Cubs got lucky that the year that they got the second overall pick was the year that he was in the draft.
Yeah.
That is luck. When you're trying to rebuild, you got to get lucky that certain guys will be available when you have those high picks, and the Cubs got Chris Bryant and nailed by far the most important draft pick in franchise history.
No question about it. And so the Sox trade Sale to the Red Sox, and it's just it's a great move all around. I mean, it helps Boston, but it definitely helps the White Sox. And you still have Jose Quintana, and he's sort of your number one guy now. I like that they didn't get rid of Quintana. I think that was smart to keep one of them, and keep the younger one maybe with more upside. Maybe still has more things to come. I know Sale is a great pitcher.
Quintana just has more years of control, and I think right now they got so many top prospects that are in the upper levels of the minor leagues that you could probably still rely on having Quintana on his team-friendly deal when those guys are ready to come up, and he could still anchor that pitching staff. I think they got so much for Adam Eaton and Chris Sale that they can actually wait on trading Quintana and decide what they want to do and see how quickly some of these guys develop.
Yeah, it seems like the plan is to have a couple of these guys up this year.
Yeah, late in the later portion of the year. And then you also have to factor in that Melky Cabrera, Brett Lawrie, and Todd Frazier are all very likely to be traded because they're all free agents at the end of this next season.
Yeah,
there's no reason the White Sox aren't going to keep them. They're going to trade them.
I would say Melky Cabrera for sure is as good as gone.
I mean, Todd Frazier, he plays Moncada's position.
Yeah.
Lowry's a free agent. So I'm sure they'll try to work something out either in January or just wait until the trade deadline to try to get something.
It's amazing how things change in 1 year, or in 2 years, I should say, where they went out and got all these people like Cabrera and Frazier and Lowry. Yeah, and now they want nothing to do with them, which is the right thing to do.
The Frazier trade. Think they would still have some other good prospects if they didn't make that trade.
Yeah. If you're I looked up the White Sox depth chart on MLB.com. And it's a pretty funny depth chart. Obviously, nothing is certain, but this was
they need catching, and Matt Wieters is a free agent and could be an option on like a 1-year deal. He doesn't have a qualifying offer attached to him.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. But right now at catcher, technically the starting catcher right now is Omar Narvaez.
Yeah, I don't know why they liked him so much. I didn't think he looked like that great. Where Hahn was talking about how he's the catcher.
Him at all.
Well, Hahn was talking about him like he's the catcher of the future, and he didn't really do that. He wasn't that great last year. That you would think that no one had ever heard of him before this.
The rest of the depth chart at DH right now, Matt Davidson. That's interesting. Todd Frazier at third, Tim Anderson at short. He's a pretty good shortstop. Lowry at second, Abreu at first, obviously. Cabrera in left, Tilson in center field, and Jason Coates in right field. So
where's Avisail Garcia?
According to this, Avisail Garcia is backing up in left and right.
I guess he didn't live up to the billing as the little Miggy when Rick Hahn traded for him.
And Tyler Saladino is backing up in the infield.
He's a good backup infielder. And Charlie Tilson, they got him for Zach Duke.
Technically, the rotation right now is Quintana, Rodon, Shields, Gonzalez, and Derek Holland, who they just recently got from Texas.
I think that's a good signing. A good sign-and-flip. Worked out well for the Cubs.
Yeah.
The first sign-and-flip netted when they flipped Paul Mahalam. In the end, that ended up getting them Tommy La Stella.
Yeah.
Because the Arodys Vizcaíno, the relief pitcher that they got, they ended up trading for La Stella. Then Scott Feldman turned into Jake Arrieta and Pedro Strop. Jason Hamill is used in a package to get Russell.
Right, it's crazy when you go back and look at it.
When you sign, I mean, really, it's like, these aren't like, signers like ooh and ah. It's just kind of like, you'll flip them at the deadline, try to get something for them. I mean, that's what these deals are. You got to find the right guy.
Right. The bullpen for the White Sox right now is David Robertson as the closer, Zach Putnam, Michael Yanoa, Dan Jennings, Nate Jones, Jake Petrichka, Tom Canley, I think that's his name, Beck, and Jose Minaya, I think.
That's not a good bullpen. I mean,
Robertson,
at all. They should trade Robertson. Nate Jones is pretty good. Petrichka looks good at times.
I am shocked that Robertson wasn't in that deal, that the Nationals weren't asking.
The Nationals wanted Robertson in the Eaton deal, and the White Sox said no.
Right.
I'm just thinking, why
and they
not?
went along and did it
That's
anyway.
$28 million that you're getting thrown out the books.
Right.
Not many teams want Robertson, probably.
Do the Nationals even have a closer right now?
No, that's how bad their offseason's been. They missed on Wade Davis. They missed on Kenley Jansen, Aroldis Chapman, and Mark Melancon in free agency.
Yeah.
Their offseason's been a failure.
And
then you miss on McCutchen, you miss on Chris Sale, so then you go and overpay for Adam Eaton. You trade the top pitching prospect in the game, Lucas Giolito, along with Reynaldo Lopez, another top 40 prospect in the game, and your first-round pick last year, Dwayne Dunning, for Adam Eaton. Adam Eaton is a good player, don't get me wrong. He's a phenomenal defender in right field, so the Nationals are using him in center.
Yeah.
He's a good leadoff.
Because it's the Nationals.
He's a good leadoff hitter, except the only problem is, they traded for a really good player. The prospects that they traded away, elite prospects, like they were going after McCutchen or Sale.
Right. Yeah, it's just, the Nationals do a lot of things wrong. Of course, before Dusty Baker, they had Matt Williams as the manager. That was a problem. They had Jonathan Papelbon for a little bit. That was a problem. They have Bryce Harper, who seems unhappy about a lot of things. That's a problem. It's just it's crazy. And then you end up losing. You end up still having a good year, but you lose your elimination game to Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers.
See, and in their window, once it started, the 5-year window that they've had so far, where they've looked like a super team.
Yeah.
In 5 years, they made it to the NLDS 3 times. They lost in Game 5 all 3 times.
Right.
And then they missed the playoffs twice.
Yeah. So and when they missed the playoffs, the Mets went, and then who went the other time that they missed the playoffs? From that
probably the Braves.
From that division, I guess
it wasn't the Marlins.
I guess it might have been the Braves. Yeah, it could have been the Braves in like that first of those 5 years.
Maybe the Phillies.
Maybe.
Well, the first year is 2012. The Phillies might have still been good then. And they won the division. It would have been 2013.
Either way, I mean, the Nationals are supposed to be, good. But
they were supposed to. They were, the super team when they signed Scherzer. Everyone thought they were a heavy favorite to win the World Series. They go and miss the playoffs. And then when you compare that to the Cubs window, before the first 2 years, once all their guys are ready, they have an NLCS appearance and a World Series title.
Right. And when you look at the Nationals depth chart right now, I mean, it's still a good team, don't get me wrong, but it's an aging team. And when you look at the fact that they traded all their their best prospects away to the Chicago White Sox, it's even more troubling. When you look at this, you have Worth, Eaton, and Harper, and then Rendon, Trey Turner, Daniel Murphy, Ryan Zimmerman. And, of course, Ryan Zimmerman's aging, and he's getting worse every year. And Jason Worth is aging, and he hasn't been – I mean, he's been good. He hasn't been, great, I would say. They also have Derek Norris at catcher right now. And, of course, Wilson Ramos, who was, probably the brightest spot on their team besides Harper and maybe Trey Turner and stuff. He's not there anymore. So it's just very interesting.
And they couldn't re-sign him because, they couldn't – he would have to pinch hit until July.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's another another good player that's not there.
It's just kind of like they don't really have. It's like it's all really really young guys and then older guys. They don't really have like a mix of the guys in between.
Right. And the rotation can still be good, but Gio Gonzalez is getting worse and Strasburg seems to get hurt all the time. So you're pretty much just relying on Scherzer to get the job done.
Scherzer, Tanner Roark, and the thing is when they were trying to get a guy like Chris Sale and Jose Quintana, I was just kind of thinking there are more pressing needs for that team than the rotation, who already, as you said, had Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, Tanner Roark, Joe Ross, Gio Gonzalez. There are more pressing needs than the rotation.
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, they're going to be competing with the Mets every single year.
See, and the thing is with the Mets, you have to figure that, the Mets, the problem was all their starters except for Syndergaard were injured.
Right.
You've got to figure that, Harvey and Matz and Zach Wheeler, who suffered a setback last year, you got to figure that all those guys, and Jacob deGrom, those guys will be more healthy.
Eventually, they'll all be healthy and playing together, and that'll be like the best rotation in baseball.
And that happened in 2015.
Yeah, so
they're all young and healthy. I think they.
So what are you supposed to do if you're Washington? I mean, it's a tough spot, and
they have good offensive players. And Neil Walker hit over 20 home runs. They still got Cespedes.
Yeah, it's a better offense than people give them credit for.
It is a much better. They still got Jay Bruce and Curtis Granderson. The rumors they're trying to trade one of them to free up a spot for Michael Conforto.
Yeah, it's certainly an offense that can rival the Nationals' offense.
Yeah, see, I feel like the Nationals have really wasted some opportunities.
Of course they did. And they have Dusty Baker to manage it all. And we all know when he's there, he brings teams to the playoffs. He doesn't bring them to the promised land, though.
See, and as you said, they traded all the guys that were really close to ready. Like Reynaldo Lopez was great in his brief stint last year.
They trade Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez, two guys that should really in the next few years should have been in this Nationals rotation.
Who you should have been relying on them, because Gio Gonzalez, I believe, is a free agent at the end of next season. So that's when Reynaldo Lopez fills in. Giolito is there, or one of them could fill in there. It depends on what you do at Tanner
imagine
Roark.
If they never signed Scherzer, what they would be right now as far as the rotation is concerned.
Yeah, they keep missing on everyone. They missed on McCutchen, 4 closers.
And again, I don't know why they didn't press so hard for McCutchen. Instead, we got to get Eaton, because they could have been in on both of those guys. And who knows? Washington is appealing. It's certainly an appealing situation. Maybe they would have gotten McCutchen.
Right.
Who knows?
And Ken Rosenthal tweeted out that he got a text from multiple Nationals players that said some very vulgar things that we're not going to repeat on the air.
I know Harper was mad.
When that Eaton trade was made, they
Harper
were stunned
that
they traded all of that talent, because it wasn't like they traded a bunch of AA, single A guys. Those are AAA guys at AAA that were dominating.
For one little player who is good, but not great.
Right. And, guys that were
not an all-star.
Dominating at AAA, had some big league experience, and then your first-round pick from last year.
So, we just got to give props to the White Sox for what they were able to do this offseason.
They did a tremendous job. I felt like they had to trade Sale or Quintana this offseason just because of how bad the starting pitching market was.
For sure.
They would definitely be able to maximize on someone's value, and they absolutely did that.
They absolutely did. They took advantage of the Red Sox, sort of, although that was a good trade for both teams, sort of.
I'm more